Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to MaGESpire Presents Harnessing Blockchain Technology for Digital Transformation. I am Bowie Lau, and I'm your host today. Before we get started, I have, let me show you the screen. Before we get started, I have a disclaimer. So anything we discuss today should not be construed as any form of financial advice or solicitation to invest. Before making any investment decision, please ensure that you do your own due diligence and also you do your own research. A quick introduction of myself. The screen is a little slow. Yep. A quick introduction of myself. I am Bowie. I'm a woman with many faces. I do angel investment into technology startups. I'm also in the VC space. I'm a partner of a venture capital fund called True Global Ventures. And beside that, I also run a consultancy arm helping companies with business development and market access. And on the side, I run a community, which is MaGESpire. I conduct lots of educational talks in blockchain, in fintech. And today, I'm very happy to have everybody join me online because the benefit of having event online, meaning I can get to invite everybody around the world, including the speakers, to join us. Not limit myself, in Hong Kong. So in July, I hosted two events all about central bank digital currency, CBDC, one in Cantonese for the FinTech Association Hong Kong, and also in English, I co-organized it with Consensus. So it was a very hot topic, and I received a lot of great feedback. And this month, I like to focus on a little bit more deep dive into the blockchain technology. So today, I'm very happy to have lots of knowledgeable speakers to join us. And the event agenda for today is very simple. So we have a small keynote, and we will jump straight to an insightful, exciting panel discussion on blockchain technology. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my first guest speaker. Are you able to see the next slide? My next first guest speaker, Floyd DCosta, co-founder and blockchain WorX and also blog Armour, and to have his keynote. Hold on a second, I need to change the slide first. Yep. So his topic is harnessing blockchain technology to lead in post-COVID-19 world, and also leveraging blockchain technology to power central bank and private sector on digital currency. So all to you now, Floyd. Hi, Floyd.
Thank you so much, Bowie. I hope I'm loud and clear.
Yep.
Lovely. All right. Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining in. My name is Floyd DCosta, and I'm the co-founder of two little startups. One, of course, a cybersecurity venture called Armour, where we use blockchain technology for cybersecurity, and the second one, Blockchain WorX, which is a Singapore-based fintech, regtech venture where we help institutions leverage blockchain technologies for digital transformation, basically. And especially in today's world where digital transformation has become the cornerstone of any organization, operating model going ahead, forced, of course, by the COVID-19 pandemic and the ensuing lockdowns. But what we're also seeing is a kind of a resurgence or a kind of a focus that's now that blockchain technology is now receiving, especially in the enterprise space. And I'm going to talk a bit about that, but also the whole underlying system that governments and financial institutions are trying to put in place for the emerging post-COVID-19 world, and how digital currencies and payment rails basically facilitate that. Of course, we'll talk a bit about that in a moment and what's happening in that space. But to get started, I wanted to share a little story that took place sometime in 2018. Bowie, if you could go to the next slide, please.
Sure.
So sometime in the second half of 2018, the World Bank launched a bond, a kind of a green bond, along with the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. They appropriately called it Bond-I or Bondi, named named after one of Australia's prettiest beaches. And but the interesting thing that they did was, it was the world's first bond to be created, distributed, and managed through its entire life cycle using blockchain technology, which included the launch, the book building, the allocation, and the management of the bond end to end on distributed ledger technology. So the system was, so the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, the CBA, basically via its innovation lab, built out the platform, and then partner of the World Bank to issue this bond, right? And it was interesting because it's one of the first major developments where some form of capital issuance was done using this new and emerging technology. Again, like you see, it's the whole bond auction, the auction, the book building, and the allocation to the different investors was completely automated. You had real-time updates and complete visibility. Of course, depending on participants' permissions, everything was auditable and immutably recorded, all transactions on a distributed ledger. And it was based on a permission network. So of course, that is the piece there where it wasn't done as on a public network, but more on a private network of that sort. It was a 2-year bond, Australia, $110 million, but that's what they started with. And instantly after that, did a follow-on issuance, and which basically showcased it's not just a one-time thing, but could be an ongoing process, right? Bowie, if you could go to the next slide. And this slide, the next one, basically shows you how that process is basically a visual representation of how that process could have worked, right? You've got the government, you've got project developers on one side, and then where you've got a written project agreement which says, hey, we're looking at this capital and this is what we're going to do with it. You've got operational costs baked in. And then you got the debt service payment that's done, right? And all of that was then encoded into a smart contract and deployed on a blockchain. What you then had was tokens that got issued, and you had arrangers and intermediaries basically that facilitated the participation of institutions. This was primarily institutions, but you could also have individuals, a group of individuals, collectives that could then have subscribed to this bond, right? Apart from the issuance and the subscription, of course, what they also facilitated was the token holder votings, right? So should there be any changes or should there be any a vote required, that could completely be facilitated on a distributed ledger-based system. Of course, the contractual terms were encoded, and the last piece is you had also the equity dilution that you could that could take place. Again, this is a simple representation or a visual or graphical representation of how it could all come together, right? And at the bottom, you of course have the distributed ledger. And again, this to reinstate this in this case, it was a private permission ledger. Bowie, next slide, please. Now, why was this so what was the key thing here, or why was this such a game changer? Because it's the first issuance and the subsequent issuance basically demonstrated how we could use emerging blockchain technology to improve various aspects of the capital issuing process. And yeah, this was a bond, but I will of course lead into the digital currency space. But what you saw is complete automation. The use of smart contracts to streamline the whole process. Transparency was a key thing, so that whether it came to pricing or investors as well as the issuer, complete transparency as to who's investing and how You had investors subscribing, but also secondary transfers taking place. Security. Now, here's the thing. When you're talking about distributed ledger, you're talking about multiple nodes. And so you have synchronized full data sets that basically replicated. It's not just, which not only brings security, but also brings about resiliency, transparency, like I mentioned, the efficiency, the complete removal of anything on paper, and everything done digitally end to end. And the last part, of course, the moment you have visibility, you can control risk and mitigate situations that happen, because keeping in mind the earlier four points that I mentioned, right? And this basically showed, and multiple issuance, so basically showed how capital markets and how a broader financial markets could leverage distributed ledger technology for faster, more efficient, and way secure more transactions that we currently have in this space. And again, this was one of the first major instances, and hence the story leading into what could then evolve. Remember, this was still 2018, and blockchain as a technology has already come a long way since then. Next slide, Bowie. So where are we today? So today, if you see, institutions are experimenting and investors have already poured millions of dollars into blockchain-related firms. You've got the whole ICO and the token space that came in somewhere around late 2017, evolved into 2018, and then pretty much went away. But now what you're seeing is a whole lot of institutions, whether they're large financial institutions, banks, non-banking financial institutes, insurance companies, but on the other side, also a spate of investors, everybody from Sandhill down to large venture capital firms in Asia that have backed companies across the board, right? Companies are looking at use cases across different segments. Right at the top end, of course, you have the whole currency space and digital currency space. Of course, you've got cryptocurrencies, but then you've got stable coins and digital assets that have started to evolve. You've got asset representation, a large part of this around securities, where folks are looking to issue all forms of securities on the blockchain, starting right from real estate to equity, bonds, like we just saw, and even art and collectibles. You've got contracts, which is pretty much the whole notary space that people are looking to say, how can you leverage the immutability factor of blockchain to basically notarize all forms of document, whether they're legal tenders or whether they're invoices and things like that. Data, of course, a big space as to how can you leverage blockchain and distributed ledger basically to have multiple recorded data sets aligned among multiple institutions. One of the key things is about taking away the whole reconciliation, which is pretty much a nightmare in any industry where you have multiple participants interacting across boundaries, geographical boundaries especially. And the last thing, where you're seeing a whole lot of traction coming in DeFi and the focus on P2P today, which again, it's not just about people, it's not about exchange of value P2P rather than having to go through a centralized organization, but also things like the Internet of Money, like I mentioned, the Internet of Things, pardon me there. Like I mentioned earlier, when we're looking at cybersecurity, the whole digital identity space, and how when you're looking at the 5G systems that are coming down, we talked to multiple telcos that are looking to roll out 5G. And remember, 5G is not about more about people. It's a lot about the whole IoT things and devices, and how can you use blockchain technology for digital identity to digitally identify and provide access to connected devices within the Internet of Things. Bowie, next slide, please. So multiple use cases that companies have already experimented, and institutional investors, in fact, have already started to participate and back projects. But then what we've seen, or what we've seen in the last few months rather, is the rapid shift to new digital business model. Any sector you talk about, and we've got organizations looking at moving complete business models into digital mode today, post-COVID-19. Again, the enterprise interest starting to swiftly grow. Now, why are we seeing that the growth in blockchain? Predominantly with enterprises, especially governments and financial institutions, looking at the whole digital transformation. And they are also starting to look at how do you replace the underlying enterprise IT infrastructure to support these new digital business models, and what are emerging technologies that they can that could be used to build these rails on which post COVID-19 digital world works upon. And but even before that, at the start of the year, you already saw LinkedIn, which kind of did a study and had blockchain listed as pretty much the #1 hard skill for 2020. Deloitte did a survey where pretty much 95% of execs surveyed said that they were going to invest in blockchain technology. A number of executives have already said that they'd lose competitive advantage, and this was even before COVID-19, if they didn't look to adopt emerging technologies like blockchain. And then, of course, you've got statistics which state by within the next 4 years, we expect corporations to spend anywhere around $20 billion just on technical services for, related to distributed ledger technology. So whether it's digital identity that I spoke about, whether it's asset tokenization, across a number of asset classes, or it's about using smart contracts to automate business processes like we saw within the bond issuance. Blockchain is starting to establish itself now, and the whole shift to digital models is what's driving enterprises, but also both public and private institutions to look at how they can leverage this distributed ledger technology as part of the emerging digital enterprise ecosystem. Next slide, Bowie. Bowie, I quickly want to check how much time do I have? Bowie, you there? How much time do I have? I can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
10 minutes. You have talked for 10 minutes already.
Got it. I'll speed up there. Okay, so very simply put, and probably many of you have seen this image before I will be adapted it, but blockchain can be a powerful tool wherever there's trading occurring, where trust is a premium, right? So if you look at distributed ledgers, I think they have we have an opportunity to radically transform industries that have largely based on transactions and record keeping and transactions. So of course you have the central, on the left-hand side, you have a central system where all transactions move through a central group, a central party. And that, of course, with many intermediaries. Or on the other side, you have the whole peer-to-peer network driven by blockchain protocols, and where you need no intermediary, and it not just speeds up processing and management, but also lowers the cost lower the transaction and infrastructure cost. Of course, the one thing when you're looking at blockchain, it offers a robust distributed transaction infrastructure, and very well suited when you're talking about collaboration between institutions across institutional boundaries. But even if you talk about large institutions, large financial institutions, it could also be intra-institutional, where you've got multiple divisions, multiple sections of an organization that simply need to connect and need a better system to be able to collaborate, reconcile, and establish that trust. Next slide, please. So here are the statistics. So now translating into digital currencies, and this is because what the government and what financial institutions are trying to do is now lay the underlying frame, lay the platform, right, for facilitation or the creation of all new markets, given the whole shift to digital today. And pretty much 65% of central banks that were surveyed, and this is by a London-based central banking institute, which 65% said that they are already actively researching digital currencies, and 71% of them actually preferring to issue a CBDC on distributed ledger technology. But here's the catch. Remember, it's DLT based, it's not necessarily blockchain. Yeah. But that's just the central banks. You're also seeing quite a bit of traction in the private sector, which digital currencies. JP Morgan has this JP coin. Facebook and the consortium, Facebook-led consortium was looking at Libra. And you're seeing a lot of traction starting to build in this space. Stable coins have been around for quite a while now, led from the crypto side, and very often backed by all sorts of assets, right? Predominantly by the US dollar, but you've also seen other currencies. But now you're also seeing stable coins backed by gold and other forms of crypto assets, right? The Dow being a major example of that. And yes, remember, multiple countries or jurisdictions and central banks are at different stages, with many of them still just researching and evaluating. But then, of course, on the other side, you've got countries that are way ahead. Singapore has done at least 5 different projects around digital currencies. But even the Bank of Canada, for example, and the Bank of England are other 2 leading organizations. The ECB and the Bank of Japan, of course, did a pilot themselves. So a few of these jurisdictions way ahead, others definitely following suit quickly. Next slide, please. Remember, while many organizations are actively looking at digital currencies, it's not always for the same use case. And so many different countries looking at different use cases, and then of course some of them looking at multiple cases. On the leftmost side, you've got retail central bank digital currencies, which basically serve as a substitute or to complement the existing fiat currency. But given that, and again, this is where you're seeing a lot less cash being used today, right? Especially on the back of COVID-19 and the lockdown, where everything is moving digital. So how can you have a retail currency? But of course, a large part of it is around the wholesale central bank digital currency, which is more around interbank, inter-institution transfers and things like that. But not the least to say, central banks are even looking at payment systems. So if you look at Libra, a lot of it was around payments. And like I mentioned, there's bond issuance and other asset issuances on the blockchain. So multiple use cases, while central banks and institutions are experimenting, they are experimenting across a variety of use cases, not all looking at the same area. Next slide, please.
3 more minutes.
Got it. Now, this is the main slide, and where, again, what are central banks looking at it? Yes, they can do it directly, but a 2-tier model for CBDC, basically with the public-private partnership, is what is starting to take shape right now. In fact, even the IMF basically kind of backed this, where you have a central bank that designs and controls the digital currency, but it's more like commercial banks that issue and manage the interaction with customers, right? But this is not new, and this is not just digital currencies. Even if you look at multiple jurisdictions in the world, this model already exists. Take, for example, Hong Kong, for instance, where you've got the HKMA that controls monetary policy and sets monetary policy and things like that. But you've got the 3 banks, HSBC, StanChart, and the Bank of China, which basically issues the notes and the fiat currency into the system. And this is where you've got on the left-hand side, and you look at the green arrows, that's your traditional system. So that's not going away. Folks are still going to be using traditional systems. You've got the legacy networks, your SWIFTs and things like that, which are still going to be there. And on the right-hand side, you got the more evolving model around digital currencies. And this is the orange arrows representing the digital transaction and the moving of cash. 3 key things to notice here is the P2P ecosystem that, the digital currency, that digital cash is slated to basically create. The P2P, a peer-to-peer thing, whether it's individual, enterprise, or even individuals to enterprise, facilitated by apps. On the right-hand side, of course, one of the key things there is open protocols as to how can multiple banks, even if they are issuing this currency, how can they collaborate, and how can you maintain the interoperability out there, open protocols being a key thing, and not to mention the APIs. APIs both on the right and the left-hand side. On the left to basically tie in into traditional systems so that the balance is maintained and the central bank can maintain balanced monetary policy and manage both fiat as well as digital, at least to start with. And on the right-hand side, you've got APIs where you've got external payments and external transfers that allow the currency to be used for a wider variety of cases, even outside the closed ecosystem of a jurisdiction or a country. Next slide, Bowie. So this basically, again, I dragged them to show how it all comes together. One last slide, and this is basically international organizations supporting the whole shift to digital, right? And across 4 key pillars, basically the wide accessibility, the whole digital space, whether it's issued by central bank otherwise, and then the token or blockchain based. And if you see the gray area, that's really the scope, right? And the one at the bottom, which is a central bank issued digital currency on the blockchain using digital tokens, being a focus area. But of course, and then a kind of a framework that allows central banks to start to pilot and play around evaluate design and then pilot digital currencies. Last but not the least, of course, like I mentioned earlier, the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, which is currently believes that there is a lot to achieve and a lot that the private sector can bring to supporting and support technology from a CBDC perspective, and is making the case for private-public collaboration and models, where, like I mentioned earlier, the central bank basically manages, controls and manages, whereas private institutions, licensed institutions, basically manage the connectivity, the customer interaction, the wallets, the systems, and things like that. I think I'm going to leave it at this slide. Bowie, is there one more slide?
One more slide, which is your contact information, Floyd.
Then we're done. I'll leave it at that for now. I think I've spoken enough. I'm going to leave it at this for now.
I mean, at the end of the slide, I also have everybody, you know, when we have virtual event, right? So it's important to get the contact of all the speakers. So at the end of my slide, actually, I have all the linking QR code for everybody to get connected. But thank you very much, Floyd, for a great keynote on this hot topic, right? So without further ado, I will jump to our next exciting panel discussion. And I'm very excited today because it's really my first time to host a female-dominated panel discussion with great, knowledgeable, and I would say popular guest speakers from both Hong Kong and Singapore. So I guess I don't need to introduce myself. So I'd like to introduce our panelists for our panel discussion today. We have Angie Lau, the founder and CEO of Forkast.News. We have Karena Belin, the co-founder and COO, Angelhub, and co-founder and CEO of WHub. And obviously we have Floyd, co-founder from Blockchain WorX and also Armour. So let's start with Angie. Angie, I'd like you to introduce yourself and also tell us how you start your journey to blockchain. And I actually secretly wanted to ask you why you left your Bloomberg job and started Forkast.News.
There's so many questions, and as they say in interview land, I'll start with the first one. So hello, everyone. I'm Angie Lau, and Bowie, thanks for inviting me here. Yeah, so I started Forkast.News because as a longtime veteran journalist, I saw that this was space that was underserved, at least from my point of view, that there was a entire professional, institutional investor class that wanted to understand the story more deeply and perhaps a little bit more than some of the superficial stories that were being bandied about at the time. And I felt that blockchain technology really had the momentum and the opportunity and the potential of really creating new opportunities and creating new silos of industries, really, that carve out from legacy and traditional industries and to create new ones. And why blockchain? I mean, it was really a personal interest of mine. There's a lot of industries that are in dire need of innovation and entrepreneurial thinking. And for me, blockchain was really interesting in the way that it could really reconnect people peer-to-peer. And what did that mean? Returning the power of the economy back to the individual. For me, as a longtime business journalist, for me, having covered 2008 and just seeing what the global economy and the shambles that we were in, and certainly the one that we are all facing right now, was there something better? Could there be something better than what the system gave us? And so really it began there as just out of a personal interest. And as I wanted to explore more what it could mean for media, what it could mean for journalism, what it could mean for future education, information, and all the rest. You know, I was seeking that information out for myself. And, you know, as they say, if you don't see it, maybe, you know, you can complain about it or you can build it. So I'm not in the business of complaining. I'm in the business of observing and identifying opportunities. And that's what I'm doing today. And why did I leave Bloomberg? Bowie, it is a great question. I think I've always been entrepreneurial. And, you know, it's a personal mandate of mine that, you know, always seek new levels of challenges, always seek higher levels of you know, of opportunity. And I guess for me, I wasn't ready to stay in place just yet. So here I am.
Yes, thank you, Angie. Thank you for joining us today. I guess your journey and experience really inspire lots of people, including myself. So thank you for joining us. How about you, Karena? Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us what you do and also your journey to blockchain.
Yes, thank you very much, Bowie. Great pleasure to be here on this fantastic panel. Hi, Angie, Floyd, and I saw a lot of familiar faces in the audience, so great to connect with you. So yeah, I'm a co-founder of two platforms, WHub and Angelhub, but they're both united with the same mission and belief that economic wealth and innovation is created by startups. And WHub is already the platform that is out for a little bit longer. So we define our mission as connecting startups to the resources they need to grow and scale their business, and hence develop this business model of being a power connector and an ecosystem accelerator. Our hashtag is Startup Passion because we're very passionate about startups, as I mentioned, but also because we believe that really the crew set is the most important asset that entrepreneurs have to attract any type of resources. And that's what we do. So we help startups to recruit. We have a job recruiting platform. We have startups obviously to create visibility and, you know, drive their market expansion. Welcome more and more startups here into Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area with several soft landing programs as our own ecosystem matures, and we're very proud of. I think those who know me, I can go on passionately to talk about the wonderful growth and achievements of our ecosystem here. And we also curate a lot of co-innovation programs between startups and larger corporations. I came from a corporate background. I nearly worked 15 years for Procter & Gamble, and I can see, you know, the benefits that both sides bring to the table in co-creating these innovative programs. And I think later on we'll have the opportunity to talk about some use cases, because basically, particularly in that, you know, space when we talk about digitization and digital transformation of larger corporations, blockchain as, you know, one technology can provide really very interesting solutions to innovate in that space. And we're also behind a lot of workshops and conferences. For example, you know, SIS, Startup Impact Summit, which was one of the anchor events of the Startup Hong Kong Festival, which went fully online for the first time ever, and hence exploded in terms of reach. Saw somebody from Invest Hong Kong in New York calling in. Was a fantastic experience. And Angie is laughing because she was one of the media and PR agencies supporting that event. It was really great because it allowed us to showcase Hong Kong to, yeah, over 3 million people basically worldwide, 96 countries participating. Anyway, so that's WHub on the one hand side. And then arguably Angelhub is taking care of that one specific connection, connecting startups to investors and vice versa. You know, any interested potential or existing investors to startup as an asset class. So we say we really have this mission of democratizing access to that very distinct asset class of highly illiquid, highly risky, but also highly profitable, you know, investment opportunities. So we're Hong Kong's very first and still only SFC licensed equity crowdfunding platform for professional investors and any growth stage company who is scaling here in Asia. And we're technology agnostic and industry agnostic. But we are very much looking into, you know, different use cases. Once again, we'll talk later about that, and have invested in blockchain technology powered startups and looking in different industries. We also have a fund that co-invests alongside on the platform. So we put the money where our mouth is. Yeah, very, very much looking forward to discussing some of the experience and really exciting, as I mentioned, shifts in market dynamics and solutions that blockchain as a technology enables.
Thank you, Karena. Floyd, you did the keynote, but you really didn't introduce yourself. I guess I know you personally, but I guess people need to know about you, and you're based in Singapore, right? So why don't you introduce yourself and also your journey to blockchain? You muted. You need to unmute yourself. Yep.
Oh yeah,
Yep. No. Hold on. You muted. Can you unmute yourself? Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, just now. Yep.
Okay, lovely. Sorry, you are my a little different from some of the other stories you've heard, right? So my background is actually in management consulting. I spent 11 years with a company called Capgemini, and then decided that, hey, you know, wanted to head out and do something on my own. And yes, you're right. I'm probably one of you that's on the other side of, you know, little south, almost near the equator in Singapore. And but yeah, I was looking at blockchain technology, and that's when a close friend of mine, that's what the cybersecurity, we decided to explore how modern approaches and emerging technology can be used to counter growing cyber threats in a bold new way. And that's when we set up a company called Armour. On the back of that, we had multiple folks reaching out and asking about, you know, hey, you guys are building a cybersecurity solution on blockchain, and you guys are enterprise, you understand how business works. You know, can you help us with a number of things? And that was a lot around financial services, because we, you know, my co-founder Narayan does come from a capital market background, spent 16 years with India's National Stock Exchange. And that's when we decided, you know what, we can't be doing this within a cybersecurity company, and so set up WorX that and registered that in Singapore to basically help companies leverage distributed ledger technology for digital transformation. That's a very brief about me, but yeah, and it's great to see Karena's passionate about Hong Kong, and I know Hong Kong has a great, vibrant ecosystem, but Singapore has an equally vibrant, you know, fintech ecosystem. I think it's right from the government down to financial institutions, and then the startups. And in fact, ever since you had the pandemic that broke out, you're seeing a lot of drive to get the entire ecosystem together and see how, you know, the ecosystem as itself could elevate up into this new digital world that we live and operate in today.
Thank you, Floyd. So let's start with Angie. I know Forkast.News because I personally read a lot of articles, and they have great insight articles and features news. But what trend are you tracking at Forkast.News? I wonder.
Two things: DeFi and DCEP. So digital electronic payment, digital currency electronic payment, which is the central bank backed digital currency, as Floyd noted correctly, using distributed ledger, not necessarily blockchain. However, it is the nature of that currency that is really interesting. We're watching what is evolving into essentially a proxy war. You know, as U.S.-China trade relations disintegrate, you know, it really has shifted the geopolitical dynamic. And certainly we are seeing ensnared technology as well. We're seeing Huawei, TikTok, Tencent, WeChat in the crosshairs of U.S.-China tensions. However, what is really on the background of this story is China's formidable development in digital currency, electronic payment, the PBOC backed digital currency. It's already in test phases. We've been tracking this story for the past year and a half. This is a technology that China has identified as being an innovative driver of economic growth. This is something, blockchain is something that Xi Jinping has identified as one of the pillars of economic growth for China back in October of 2019, pre-COVID, obviously. And now we're seeing those developments take shape. And at the same time, I think I'm hearing somebody's audio bleed through.
Sorry. You need to mute yourself. Was he speaking?
Bowie, I think you can mute everybody if you want.
Yeah, 1 second.
Thank you.
Hold on a second. Yep. Sorry about that, Angie.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Sorry about that, everyone. So what's interesting is, you know, at the same time, we have private enterprise in the US driving and lobbying for the digital dollar. This is the Digital Dollar Foundation that is chaired by the ex-CFTC chairman, Chris Giancarlo, and one of its partners is Accenture, and they've been working on the digital dollar. But when asked in front of a policy meeting, Jay Powell, Federal Reserve Chairman, said, first we must understand. And so it really indicated this lack of even development or you know, even beginning to talk about US and thinking about a central bank backed digital dollar. You fast forward just, you know, to today. Now we're hearing that MIT is working with the Federal Reserve of Boston. And it's a multi-year agreement in which they're going to be working on how to integrate central bank needs and requirements into a digital dollar. But I will have to note, China has spent the past 6 years working on this. It's already in trial phases across multiple cities. It's in people's hands right now. And at the same time, we're just starting to see the US engage from a federal level. And so not to say that first out of the gate is the winner, but certainly there's a big head start. And I think we're going to start seeing a more divergent policy and also systems, two divergent systems backed by technology that will emerge in the next decade.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I know China has already started in 4 cities, and next they're planning to do so in Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area. So I'm very excited. Floyd, we know that central banks and all the financial institutions are experimenting with CBDCs, but which are the key blockchain platforms that are, you know, that they are piloting with? You want me to unmute you, Floyd? Floyd?
Am I audible? Am I audible now?
Yeah. Go on.
Yep.
Maybe you should unmute yourself.
I couldn't. For some reason, it's not allowing me to unmute. But nevertheless, sorry, coming back. So it's interesting, right? And like Angie mentioned, you've got China, the the Chinese central bank already taking the lead on this, the US are doing, and a number of institutions. But again, like I mentioned at the start, probably not everybody is looking at blockchain technology, and they're looking at different platforms. And even when you say blockchain, there are institutions that are piloting with a broader distributed ledger technology ecosystem, right? So you've got simple DLTs that could be used here. But yes, it's the preferred platform. Again, if you see a lot of the pilots or a lot of the experiments happening out there, you've got three key enterprise platforms that at least the institutions are starting to work with, right? You've got the Hyperledger Fabric, which comes from the Linux Foundation stable, and you've got a number of organizations already working together there. You also have JP Morgan's Quorum, which is kind of an enhanced version of Ethereum, and you've got the whole Ethereum Enterprise Alliance around that one. So you're definitely seeing that being used, and especially because it builds in a lot of privacy and security features into such an offering. But I think there are a lot of organizations experimenting with things like R3 Scorda, for example. I know that there are definitely experiments done here in Singapore and a number of other jurisdictions with Scorda, but a number of institutions also simply using vanilla Ethereum today, either using the public chain or having a fork and having a private version of Ethereum, and then using some sort of a BaaS system to manage that. Again, very basic, but and experimenting with different models, right? Number one, is it like a single issuance? When you're talking about institutes like JP Morgan or the JP Coin, which is done on, of course, their own platform Quorum, but other similar private institutions that are already piloting with a number of these technologies, and then the governments at a different level based on either its public-private partnership or with institutes and other institutions looking at a whole host of technology. Not to mention, there are certain projects even happening without blockchain as the underlying platform, and looking at traditional technologies to underpin the rails for a digital currency. So it's across the board. I hope that helped.
Yeah, thank you, Floyd. Yes, definitely. Speaking about central bank digital currency, we know it can either go with blockchain or without blockchain, right? So, but beside the CBDC, I think is also important for the general public to understand non-fungible tokens. So, question to you, Karena. I know that you are very knowledgeable in the gaming space. So tell me, blockchain and NFT or non-fungible tokens, how does it really change the gaming sector?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. And again, just to highlight on Angelhub, we're actually sector agnostic and technology agnostic. So we don't only look into blockchain, and different industry right now are really benefiting from COVID, where COVID seems to be a bit of a blessing in disguise, be it education technology or health tech and food tech. But gaming obviously is one industry where, we can say now with people scotched behind their screens, every day is a weekend now. Again, just to highlight in terms of the impact that we can see is, we'll see that the gaming sector right now is over $100 billion US dollars. Industry will develop over the next year to an even $1 trillion industry. And one of the reasons is exactly what you were referring to, is the fact that we can see, thanks to the application of blockchain technology, a shift in market dynamics. And to give you an example, what blockchain technology and NFTs, non-fungible tokens, really allow is that now the gamers, so it shifts market dynamics, that gamers can now start really to not only build, but also to own, and now furthermore monetize their own creations, right? So again, that is a major shift. Very often I tell my girls when I have webinars that talk about the gaming industry and NFTs, that they should not listen, because basically my girl who loves to become a YouTuber or a gamer, difficult to get off Roblox, now she will understand that she can make a living out of actually playing games. And just to see how that works. So basically what non-fungible tokens mean is you can tokenize, right? You can create assets, tokenize and own them, and secure them, and then start trading them. So one very interesting example is, and you may have seen it in the news, there's a company out there called TSB with the sandbox, because they just finished a private sale on Binance, where they combined three elements in that, virtual gaming world that allows exactly that, gamer monetizing UCG, your user-generated content. So they have something which they call the Vox Editor, which allows you as a gamer to create skins. I don't know who plays Fortnite or who plays Roblox or who knows about Minecraft, but just imagine, for those who have never played, you transpose Legos into a virtual world. You can start building your own little Lego castle in a virtual world. And now you can start, owning it. And that's linked to a marketplace. And based thanks to that, non-fungible token, so the tokenization of that asset, it really belongs to you, right? And then you can transfer that to a marketplace where you can start exchanging it. And then furthermore, they build what they call a game maker, which allows you in that virtual world where you can buy actually land sales. So again, you can buy virtual assets, and then you can start building games on that virtual land, and you can start, trading assets on that virtual land. Again, just what is really fascinating is to see that, for example, on that, private sale, it was fully sold out, and the token already, 3 days later, trades, doubled the price that it was sold. So, and it's interesting. And again, it's one example where we can see that technology starts really shifting market dynamics, and with that will help really further develop the entire industry.
Yes, I am very proud of Sandbox, because Sandbox is actually one of True Ventures portfolio company. We believe in the company, so we only invested in equity. However, they're doing so well with their token, and we ultimately, as an investor, we do get benefit from it. So I'm very proud and very excited for them.
Yeah.
So,
but again, I mean, just to round up, I mean, that was one example that actually, shows a little bit like the activity system. How does that really work in practice? But there are several, examples out of there, and we can see, again, to the fact that you can create, really unique assets, virtual assets. There are other examples out there where, Formula One cars that are unique, start selling for several, hundred thousands of US dollars worth of Ethereum coins, for example, right? And again, even, I don't know, you joined the panel during SIS, where I had the pleasure to not only have Sebastian from Sandbox, but also Mick from CryptoKitties on a panel. It's again the same concept of, breeding kitties on a blockchain, starting creating unique cats with, blue eyes and blonde hair, etc., that you then start owning and can, create value to it, and make it really exchangeable, tradable. And what is really interesting, that's why I wanted to round it up, because that's one element that I forgot to highlight, is if you ask Mick, what was the purpose behind CryptoKitties, it was really also helping democratizing access to blockchain technology by, identifying concrete use cases that are, again, playful, gameful. Again, that's why I don't want my girls necessarily to listen to this webinar, because I don't get them off the screen afterwards. But again, I think that's really very, very interesting.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. There's so much things happening, right? So we have non-fungible token, we have the digital currency, so much is going on. So Angie, you think is that really a race in blockchain internationally right now, and perhaps China versus United States?
Well, I mean, blockchain in of itself philosophically is public. It's permissionless. I mean, it's decentralized, and it shouldn't be necessarily owned by any one sovereign. Isn't that the ultimate vision of blockchain? And that's essentially, what initially drives to think about how to integrate this technology and how it can be used to change industries. And the fact is, the power of blockchain, I think, you know, there are dynamics in which it can be used at enterprise level. I think that lots of industries can be, you know, nationally agnostic. I mean, if you take a look at the decentralized community of some blockchain protocols and consortiums and governance structures, I mean, one could argue that while there appears to be a race, ultimately there's something else going on. So in the financial world, and certainly with some of the proprietary technologies, there can be that. But I think blockchain also holds a more beautiful place right now in this current narrative tension and you know, the tit for tat. I think there's a potential for migration for better, where, you know, public blockchains, and certainly we're seeing this emerge in DeFi. There's a lot of interest there, and, you know, at the same time, there's a lot of regulatory concern that chases that. So, you know, where is this all falling down? I think it comes down to, is there a race? I certainly believe, yes, 100% there is a race. And, you know, how do you nurture innovation without squashing that with regulation? That is a dynamic that is certainly happening across Asia. I think there's a lot of nations in Asia that are getting it right. Floyd is, and the rest of us, we're kind of sitting in a part of the world where nations are thinking very innovatively about new technologies, even as a use case for leapfrogging into a new future. But I think there's a different race going on as well. One that is permissioned blockchain and one is public blockchain. And I think that race is happening right now as well. And obviously the money is on, and the enterprise and the institutional and the firms that are in place in the Fortune 500s that are working towards, obviously, permissioned, but there is going to be as well interoperability and the elegant path in which blockchain, public and permission can work together. So that race is also going on, and it's a great one to track.
Yes, it's very exciting. I look forward to more special article coming from Forkast.News. So, you know, Floyd, digital currency could bring multiple benefits. You already went through it in your keynote, you know, such as efficiency trade, greater financial inclusion for millions of people, and reduction in financial crime by increasing transparency and traceability. So while the benefits are very clear now, but what is the key, or what are the key challenges of using blockchain for digital currency?
Good question there, Bowie. And if you look at it today, I think one thing is very clear. Why you're seeing, so what would have actually taken 2 or 3 years to happen, you're seeing it happen accelerated in a much shorter period of time, right? And the whole focus on blockchain technology. And like, you know, Angie also mentioned that with multiple countries trying to, you know, take the lead and emerge first, right? I don't think there's going to be one winner, but yes, the guy at the forefront will automatically see adoption. And when you're talking about countries like the US, China, they are looking at saying who comes out with the currency first and is able so that an ecosystem quickly evolves around that, right? As every nation will look to leapfrog into this new digital world that we are presented with, or a situation where both public and private organizations have pretty much very little choice but to engage with or transform to digital. But not all of it will happen on the blockchain. One of the key challenges is, remember, blockchain is still a very emerging technology, right? and brings with it a lot of risk that we don't know about. Now, if you say, starting with Bitcoin, which is, you know, one of the first digital currency or one of the greatest use cases on the blockchain, it's been around for 10 years and it's doing fairly well, apart from speed and other issues which can be addressed. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Okay,
I think I put you just no, without video, then your connectivity is better. So that's
thank
why I
you.
changed it. Yeah.
Thank you. The perils of working from home these days, but nevertheless, coming back. So one of the biggest risks is the risk that we don't know about, right? Things that we know about, we can address when you're talking about things like speed, transaction speeds, and there are enough and more organizations working on that. But it's the risk that we don't know about which pose a true challenge. And when you're talking about central bank digital currencies or even privately issued digital currencies, these are rails that are being set, platforms that are being built that will touch pretty much everybody's life, right? Touch every individual, every organization. And then I mean, any institute that looks to issue a currency will look to mitigate those risks. But the challenge with blockchain is there are enough and more risks that we don't know about. And those are things you can't plan for. And that's, I guess, one of the biggest challenges when apart from the numerous benefits, the one key challenge that people will be looking out for, whether it's in government, or public or private, will be focused on what is that one thing that could break that we don't even know about today.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Floyd. Speaking about blockchain, right? I think one of the key feature is tokenization. So, Karena, can you give us, beside NFT, non-fungible tokens, I'm sure that lots of multiple different areas that you can utilize for tokenization. So, can you give me example, perhaps from the art industry and also property market?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. And again, it's actually I was going to say on the WHub side, right? As I mentioned, we can see a lot of use cases where blockchain is leveraged to help digitize, larger corporations or more traditional, markets and market players. Obviously, the programmability of Ethereum and the fact that, you can have agreements embedded opens up a whole new world with smart contracts, and that plays a major role in supply chain management and trade financing. But I'm glad that you're mentioning one particular other element that really blockchain allows, which is, once again, tokenization, or even, once you can basically rebuild real existing assets in a virtual world, then it also opens up the door for fractionalization of these assets, right? So you can split up that virtual asset into multiple smaller parts. And it's really interesting. So when we were supporting the Christie's, a very traditional, auction house and obviously one of the major players in the art ecosystem, helped them to bring the very first art and tech event here in Asia. That was last November, nearly a year ago. And when we looked into that space and brought companies that are innovating in that space. And why, again, is that interesting? Because once again, just as a background, I mean, of course, blockchain can play a major role when transactioning art, right? On authentication again, and then in terms of, dealing with it, settlement, etc. But if you start looking into the possibility of taking a Picasso or a Monet and start and tokenizing it, and with that, again, arguably fractionalizing it, where tomorrow you can start trading it, where I can own 1,000 or 1 million piece of a Monet or a Picasso, and then can really start looking into art as a pure investment opportunity. That once again starts, shifting market dynamics. It's a very interesting company in South Korea. And again, recently had Tim on a panel where he said it really allows younger generations have access to a market that is very small and very often inaccessible, given like the pricing that we're talking per piece. But even further down the line then, not only on, for example, giving millennials the opportunity to start investing into art and owning art, it once again also opens up very interesting business models. If you just look, for example, museums, art museums. Again, very, very difficult business models in terms of financing and monetizing and not running with huge deficits. If you can start thinking that if you open up the possibility for museums to source art by basically, you know, having access to the public as owning, you know, parts of that art piece and potentially even having a coupon on it, and the more it's visited, it's seen, you know, you can start earning, you know, dividends on owning a piece of the art work, that with you financing it and being part of that, actually enabling access to the wider public. Again, that's something that's I think is really fascinating, and I agree, it's still relatively, you know, new technology, and there's still a lot I think that we will be learning. But when I see these type of evolutions, and again how that shift market forces and dynamics, and with that obviously investment opportunities, it's really interesting.
Thank you, Karena. Here's my next question, Angie. How is blockchain going to impact media? And what is your vision for the future of journalism, content, and also information?
100%. It's trust, or you know, when there is no need because it's baked in, the immutability. I 100% believe and know and working on Web 3.0 blockchain solution, and how we can use blockchain to authenticate, to verify, to record, to document for all eternity, immutable from original source, for the reader ultimately. And it is an extra tool that reinforces and strengthens journalism. There's no doubt. And then, you know, fast forward into how we can, you know, use tokens to incentivize and to redefine relationships between sponsors and the readers in a much more direct and peer-to-peer way, all the way down to even just you know, supporting the media platform that you're enjoying and that you're consuming and that you want to support with a token. There's just so many facets to how blockchain can be used and implemented, and not only for media. I mean, this is what we're tracking. It's cross-sectional, and it touches upon every industry. You know, I used to say that every story is a business story because, you know, lots of people would say, well, what's a business story? Well, if you think about it, every story is a business story. If it boils down to power or money, every story is a business story. And I'm going to use the same metaphor for where I see blockchain and DLT and you know, all of these emerging technologies. Right now, we're at a precipice, and it's as far as the eye can see, at least from this vantage point in Asia, is that every industry is going to be touched by this technology. From, you know, and probably 80% of it, you won't ever see it. You won't ever see it, and you won't ever notice it. But it will be there. It will become part of the engine of a future machine that creates much more seamless, efficient, and frictionless relationship between all of us.
Yeah, I agree, totally agree. Floyd, you know, there's still, you in your keynote or even in your previous answer, there's still lots of technological barriers to overcome before any CBDC becomes a reality. And, you know, scalability, security are crucial to the effectiveness of any CBDC, while other barriers to efficiency, you know, need to be overcome. But why are we still seeing an increase in enterprises actively exploring blockchain technology today?
That's interesting, right? And this is something which, you know, perhaps a question which even I asked myself, and then I decided to ask around. Now, what happened is the whole shift to digital, and that is, we shouldn't be saying this, but it's the silver lining that's showing up on, in dark clouds that COVID-19 cast upon pretty much all of us, right? And what has happened is enterprises have been forced to move to digital and digital business models, digital operating models. Now, the existing legacy systems don't necessarily support those natively. It doesn't allow banks, financial institutions, but even all forms of other institutions to natively move to these new forms or these new business models, right? And that's where started, having established the base, taken the last 3-4 months to kind of, evolve some intermediate interim strategy to get into digital, to sit back and say, hey, should we be looking at a next generation technology? Should we be looking at modern and emerging technologies to build these new platforms that basically facilitate and, and support our operating models for this new digital world, right? We can't be using the same legacy systems, because then we are just building layer on layer on layer, which we've been doing for a long, long time. The banks have been doing it. The non-banking financial institutions have been doing it. And what enterprises, whether public organizations, right? Whether they're looking at voting systems or looking at digital identity and a whole lot of other use cases, starting to say, hey, is there a smarter way to do it? If we're going to do it digitally, can we look at modern technology that natively does a whole lot of things for us, right? That automates a whole lot of our process. If you take a look at asset issuances, right? Karena spoke about it. Angie spoke about it. Is there a way where we can take away all the dozens of intermediaries that need to facilitate even one simple transaction, right? For example, you use distributed ledger and you instantly do away with the reconciliation, right? The settlement, automate the whole settlement, the clearing and settlement process, right? Again, when you're talking about peer-to-peer, even if it's a simple transfer, even if it's in the same city, in the same house, that transaction goes to multiple loops. Can we change that? Can we change the underlying system to make this whole digital world that we're going to be living in a lot more efficient, a lot smarter, and automate a lot of those processes that, because of whatever legacy we now have, multiple hop systems, right? And that's where enterprises are starting to look at, hey, yes, 10 years ago, perhaps we didn't have these technologies, and what we had with, we made do. But today they're starting to look at it, and it's not just blockchain. They're starting to look at multiple other technologies to say, how can we rewire this new digital world of how can we reset our operating models, our business models to now, because
a little louder, Floyd. Speak
is
up.
this better?
Yep.
Yep. And it's not because they want to change, it's because their customers are forcing them to change. It's because the customers are moving to digital. I mean, think about the past 5 months when you walked into a small little shop to buy something. The first thing you did was, hey, is this available online and can I order it, right? And now institutions, organizations are saying, can we lay the groundwork for this new digital world, the world that we operate in, and can we use emerging technologies like blockchain? And that's what's driving the huge, focus on these technologies today. Not just in finance, but across the board. Supply chain being another big area, right? Where you're seeing a lot, again, driven by COVID-19, where many supply chains broke because of, legacy ways of doing things. And now with this new digital world, can we use things like blockchain technology to drive supply chain visibility and integration between multiple parties involved in any value chain?
Yeah, speaking about value chain, this is actually the question I wanted to ask Karena. What is your view, for the role of blockchain in supply chain management?
Yeah, so again, I thank you, Bowie. I'll touch a little bit on it, right? And in terms of when we look about different elements and advantages of blockchain, So again, in terms of permissioning, you know, really ensuring that you have only authorized parties taking part of a certain transaction across the supply chain, and the privacy element, and even the fact that you can give different accesses, you know, read, write, and access to information along, again, a specific transaction that is, you know, mimicked throughout the supply chain and the value chain. And then obviously, again, in terms of performance, it's super fast, you know, and you can go very large scale. And then obviously we talked about, you know, the trust element, the finality part, the fact that, you know, funds are good, you know, the settlement part underneath a certain physical transaction, right? So the monetary settlement part is, you know, funds are good, payments are final. And the fact that I talked about it, you know, the possibility of smart contracts, because you can embed, you know, automated agreements, automated, you know, fields. So it's really, really interesting. And I think one of the things that I think is a little bit in terms of, you know, we talked about it, and Floyd and Bowie were mentioning it as well, in terms of how are companies really looking into blockchain. And I think there's one thing that they're realizing is, at this point in time, it seems, you know, the most future-proof technology, and it seems to open up with the entire ecosystem of, you know, not only public blockchain. And if we just take, once again, Ethereum as a fantastic example, but the fact that you have, you know, private layers, enterprise layers, plus accessibility and transferability to an open ecosystem, and you know, Ethereum ecosystem, plus the whole development of dApps and of really applications that drive productivity, that drive efficiencies. And with that, you know, you understand that, or companies start understanding it's actually, you know, I don't know how many years back, the understanding of what the internet and the intranet is helping companies to drive efficiency. So I like to, you know, take that as an example on how you can actually look into the combination, right, of public, private blockchain, which is actually even better than what the internet and the intranet is, because arguably, at least when I started off, you know, the internet wasn't very transferable to the internet at that point in time. So it's really, really fascinating. So if you can just, and I think we mentioned it already, but if you can just, as a concrete example, take, you know, a product that is supplied from a certain part of the world, manufactured, started to be, you know, onboarded on a logistical flow, you know, with transportation, warehousing, distribution, up to then in-store, and then to the end consumer. If there's one trace of a physical asset, plus, you know, mimic, and once again, the settlement part, the payment element to it, that just increases, once again, the trust element, the security, and the efficiency, and then, you know, once again, speed. So it's fascinating.
Thank you. That's pretty much all the questions I have. So this is the Q&A session where all the audience are able to, you know, take this opportunity to ask any questions that you might have for our panelists today. And I previously asked some audience, and here I got 2 questions. So thank you, Patrick Walsh from Canada. I hosted you last month, and now you came and supported my event. So so I read exactly what you wrote, okay? So Patrick wrote, as much as Angie is a guest today, you know, Angie has a great interviewing technique and also a deep understanding of the space, but how does she distinguish between authentic interview subjects of substance from those that are caught in the echo chamber of crypto hype, and what are the tell signs?
That's a great question. And you know what it is? It's do your homework, due diligence. Everybody knows what that means. You do it before, Bowie does it before she invests in companies, same with Karena. And I do it before I invest my time and your time, quite frankly, and valuable real estate on Forkast.News. Before we do that. So we do our due diligence. We have a great editorial team. We do our research and we do our homework. And it really boils down to also, you know, the impact the project or the person has already had. And you know, you suss it out. But it's a great question. But thankfully, we find some really great people and who are so thoughtful and so knowledgeable to share their talents and their expertise with us. It's something that we've honed, you know, at least for me, many decades as a journalist. So, but you know, it's something that increasingly, you know, you as an audience is also doing for yourself. I mean, you ask some of the smartest questions in the room. You do your due diligence. You check your facts. You go to original source all the time, and just brush up and muscle up on your media literacy skills. It's more important than ever before. But we as journalists are right there alongside you, and we'll make sure that, you know, our sources and the ones that you trust, and you know, this is a privilege that I take with great responsibility and great honor. You know, we'll do our job, and your job is to make sure that you hold you hold us to our task as well.
Yes, couldn't agree anymore. Do your homework, do your research. I think nowadays lots of information are actually not accurate and not real. So I think having a critical thinking before you come up your conclusion is very important. And plus, before you make any decision on investment or your career move, you know, the first thing to, you know, to do is to get yourself educated. So couldn't agree anymore. So Patrick has another question for Karena. Has Karena been attempted to use blockchain technology within the capital raising and cap table operations conducted with Angelhub? I love this question.
Fantastic. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a very good clarification. And again, I'm not here on the panel to talk about, you know, blockchain technology within Angelhub. So actually, to clarify, no, on Angelhub, you invest with fiat money. You don't invest with cryptocurrencies, and also we do not tokenize any assets through Angelhub. No. So that's very, very clear answer. Now, the thing is also, again, in terms of when we look obviously with the evolution in the regulatory space, it's really interesting that you know, just recently, the SFC actually came once again out with new regulatory framework around, you know, STOs and around really looking into the possibility on tokenizing assets, etc. So obviously, is that something that is out there? Is that something that is here to come? For sure. Is that something that, you know, how fast? I mean, that's always the crystal ball question, which I never really want to answer, because you can only get it wrong, and you very often underestimate how fast, you know, the technology or the changes is happening. But yeah, no, on Angelhub, you don't invest with cryptocurrency.
Sure, thank you. That's fair enough. So I got another question from someone. I think Floyd could be able to answer this question. What sectors are embracing digital transformation and which are lagging behind?
So here's the thing, and I'm sure all of you all have seen this, right? There's a meme going around which states, hey, who is driving digital transformation in your organization? And it has three choices. It's the CEO, is it the CTO, or is it COVID-19, right? And today, I don't think there's anybody who has a doubt to point out that, hey, no, I'm going to select, it's COVID-19, right? And pretty much every industry is exploring how it can make the shift. And it's not really COVID-19. COVID-19 is driving consumer behavior, and consumer and clients are moving to digital, right? And then your partners are moving to digital, and suddenly the entire ecosystem is lifting itself to a whole new plane and a whole new all new business models, right? Which are primarily driven by digital. And so every organization which works with other organizations or clients or directly with clients, B2B or B2C, are now looking. Yes, there are more, there are organizations leading this fray. I think the financial services has always been one of the leading sector, if you had to pick one. But even many of many sectors which have been probably cautious or a little more risk averse are starting to have this, are starting to look at it, right? But even today, if you look at it, sectors that are hit the worst, and think about the restaurant industry, think about travel industry, and now you've got a whole lot of companies, organizations, whether public or private, within the space that are now looking to make the shift to digital. Whether it's a tourism, agency that's now offering 3D based, travel, where you can actually watch these 3D videos, and it gives you a feeling of that you're in country. Or if it's, even if you look at the restaurant sector, where pretty much many restaurants in many parts of the world are making over 80% of revenues today exclusively via delivery, right? And these either via, and that's where they made the shift to apps or their own websites where customers go and order today. So yes, you've got the financial services sector, but which has always been one of the leading, or at least, and predominantly driven by fintech today. And it's astonishing the way legacy or traditional institutions are working with fintechs today, and the efforts being made by even the government to bring this ecosystem together. But on the other side, you've got pretty much every sector. Supply chain is one of the major ones that's also being driven towards digital models today. So yeah, pretty much every industry that has an opportunity and whose ecosystem is getting shifted towards digital pretty much has no choice but to transform their own operating model into a more digital model, or a digital first world, as we call it today.
Sure. Thank you. One last question. This is the last question before we have closing, also from the audience. I think this question applies to all the panelists. So to your knowledge, what types of DApps have you seen being developed that are already disrupting or at least innovating spaces like supply chain, as mentioned before, and perhaps in media as well for Angie? And it seems there's already so much competition between all the crypto exchanges and Ethereum in recent news. We don't always hear about the great tech that's being developed for mass adoption. So anyone would like to start first?
I've tons. I mean, to give some concrete examples again, and some of the dApps I stumbled over in the context of supply chain management. So one is OpenLaw, and we have Patrick on the call as well. So which is an automation execution of legal contracts. Another one is really in terms of accounting, automation of accounting and financial management platform, and really management of digital assets, which is called Belin 3. So again, I think actually it is probably an evening filling conversation in itself in terms of the ecosystem that already exists, and fascinating.
Any comment, Angie?
I was gonna say I'm equal opportunity fan, observer, and potential critic of everything. So, but what is exciting about this space is just how quickly the developer community is adapting using just smart contracts and just thinking of even the most innovative and minute ways of originally using it. So I think my favorite is probably the one that's being developed right now across distributed teams in a decentralized chat room somewhere. It's probably that we'll be writing about or talking about in the next couple months.
Sure. Floyd, do you have anything to comment?
Yeah, just one thing. So, no favorite D app of sorts, but what I like is a lot of consortiums coming together across in different segments, right? So you've got supply chain groups that are coming together, and there are very concrete examples of, enterprises or companies within supply chain that are working together across, looking at end-to-end value chains. The other interest, similarly, even if you take trade finance, another one interesting space where you have multiple parties across organizations, across different sectors coming together to form this consortium that can now collaborate using blockchain as the underlying technology. And similarly, even the topic we touched upon, digital currencies, and how Facebook is leading an entire consortium of companies in its pursuit on the Libra project, right? That is looking to revolutionize payments using digital technologies. So I like the consortium, and I think that's where the power of a distributed ledger technology actually lies, bringing together multiple parties to collaborate on with a single underlying system that provides the rail to power the digital, all new markets. Now, of course, completely digital or digital first, as we like to call it today.
Sure. Yes. Well, thank you everybody, and that's wrap up for my event today. Before we go, I'd like to ask each panelist one piece of advice or comment that you can give to our audience today. How about you, Angie?
Keep moving forward. There is space between COVID and if we can look past just what is obvious in front of us, which is obviously a lot right now. The global conversation has us all experiencing a lot of stress, but if we can kind of find our way through that space, there is clarity in these communities, there's clarity in conversations, and there's clarity in knowledge. It empowers us all. So we just encourage all of us to keep moving forward. And Bowie, I just want to thank you so much for being one of those leaders in this space and corralling us in these lovely moments and finding time to share our ideas.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. How about you, Karena?
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to build on and thank you very much for a fantastic job from planning and delivering all the way through. So obviously, I'll have to make a shout out to the ecosystem here, and just mentioning again that Hong Kong is a major blockchain hub. So not only in the gaming industry or fintech industry, so definitely stay connected. I still remember 2013. It was only a delegation of 10 startups. Going to the Web Summit. So when we went with WHub, one of the other companies was BitMEX. And I still remember talking to Arthur and Ben, and they were so like, blockchain really is a thing. And, in 2013, I was like, yes, it's one of the most successful, crypto exchange platforms in the world, right? One of our unicorns here in Hong Kong. And I'd also like to leverage that when I say the ecosystem here. It's not only Hong Kong. Floyd mentioned about Singapore being a wonderful, thriving ecosystem. I always love to say, obviously there is some rivalry, I think, in a lot of areas, but for startups, they're meant to go global. So it's not either or, Hong Kong or Singapore. It's both in any case. Yeah, I hope we can travel soon again and make more connections happen. But definitely stay connected to the blockchain space here and the opportunities here. It's amazing, at the right place at the right time.
Absolutely, exactly. Thank you, Karena. How about you, Floyd?
First off, Bowie, it's my pleasure to be on a panel with such wonderful women like yourselves, and championing the cause for digital, the shift to digital and the usage of blockchain technology underpinning the whole digital transformation that's happening. I sincerely wish there were more folks like you. The industry definitely needs a lot more of a Bowie and Angie and Karena. So thank you, and it's been my pleasure. Point one, point two, yeah, like Angie said, change is happening, and the way we evolve, the way forward is going to be much brighter and much more, we're gonna come out of the dark, gloomy days, right? There's always sunshine at the end of the rain. So look forward to that, and this whole digital transformation. I think it's just going to turn out positively for everybody in the end. So keep an eye on that.
Thank you, Floyd. Well, I'm very thankful that I basically don't have to ask many. I have specifically targeted the panelists I asked, and I immediately got it. So I don't have to like ask like 20 and only got few. I asked one, I immediately got it. So I'm very thankful that I have Angie, Karena, and Floyd joining us today. And for me, I think one last comment is no matter what you do, I think the first thing is, especially during this difficult time during the COVID-19, I think it's important to invest yourself. There's so many ways that you can invest yourself. I think first is to get the knowledge. No matter what you do, you want to make an investment decision, you want to make a career move. No matter what you do, the first thing that you have to do is to get yourself educated. And during this time, I think a lot of us will have to stay at home. So I think it's also important to invest the relationship with your family. There are so many things you could do. I have two lovely boys, so I got the time to spend a lot with them. And also with your spouse, your parents. There's so many things. So I think the key right now is to stay positive, invest yourself. And when you have knowledge, you can turn knowledge into skill set, and skill set definitely will turn something into something valuable for you. So once again, thank you everybody. Thank you all the panelists for joining us today, and we will keep in touch. And this is the QR code I prepare for everybody. So I think having in a virtual event, I think the most important thing is to really, how can I get in touch with all the speakers? So this is all the QR code that you can directly link to the LinkedIn profile. So please feel free to scan the QR code and get connected with everybody. And this is the next QR code for my MaGESpire group to stay tuned for all the future events. So please scan and join as a member. And next month, I'm planning on something on EdTech, which is education technology. I think this is one of the key trend. And I think it's important to know how education technology disrupt the world, and what are the investment opportunities, and all the we're going to deep dive in it. So thank you for joining us, and we keep in touch. Thank you.
Stay safe, guys.
Thank you. You too, Floyd, everybody.
Cheers.
So I'm
Bye
going
for
to
now.
create a virtual room for Karena, Angie, and Floyd. So please bear with me. I think Angie is gone.
Yep, I'm not sure if we're in the right breakout room.
1 second.
I think you put me in the breakout room, and then I kind of like left again.
You know what I'm gonna do?